Okay. So the last 2 weeks we went through the wireframing, the mock-ups, and then today we're going to do the fun things of prototyping, making the buttons actually take you to places and seeing some animations in our prototype. Now, I didn't want to force you all to build a bunch of screens just to practice this. So I made a bunch, and we're going to use the Figma community that I've mentioned a couple times to find that file. So as you're logged into your Figma, you can click on this Explore Community button in the top right. And this is the Figma community. People can create their different Figma files and upload them for others to create a copy and use. So you'll see some kind of fun things in here already. Apparently someone made a little chessboard. There's a wireframe kit. So if you don't want to go through those steps of making each individual wireframe, you could just copy theirs. And this one looks pretty, all these components for the charts. But let's find the one that I made for us. So if you go into the search bar and you search DL Figma, it should show up. It's titled DL Figma Workshop, and you can see it's published by me, Sean, right here. You get a preview of the file, and up here, there's this Get a Copy button. So if you were to click that, it'll take you to a new tab where they create a copy of that file from the community, and everything is in there already for you. You'll see that I created all of these different text styles, these different color styles for us. And then I created the wireframe page is what I did the very first workshop. Yeah, if you go to the Figma community. So yeah, so with your Figma, you click Explore Community, and then search community, search for DL Figma. And then it's this one right here, the DL Figma workshop posted by me, and then you click Get a Copy. So the wireframe page has the stuff that we built the first workshop. The mockup has the stuff we built last week. The prototype has all the screens and the frames that I built for us to play around with today. In the assets page, I built a bunch of different components as well to use in our prototype. And then this extra learning resources page, if you highlight the frame and you click this play button, it'll open it up as the prototype. And I put links in here to a bunch of different things if you want to learn more about UX design or Figma or general design. All you have to do is either click on that heading where it's like this green box in the title, or you can click on where there's this highlight green text, and they'll take you to the different things if you want to learn more. All right. So let's go back to our file and go to this prototype page. So we've done most of our work in this design tab over here so far. When we click different things, we see all those different settings, but we're going to do a lot in the prototype tab today. So if you go over there, you'll notice some different settings that you can choose. First is the device. So when you're using a prototype and you're viewing it, it's going to show you a device essentially that you're like, oh, I'm simulating if I was actually having an iPhone 14 Pro and how it would look on that. It should automatically be set to that because those are the frames that we created. When we created the frames, we specifically set the iPhone 14 Pro preset. But if you want to test it out on different devices, you can just click within there and see all of the different types that you can use. These two buttons over here will change the orientation if you want to see it vertically or horizontally. If you want to be fun and change the type of iPhone, you can do that. It doesn't do much. It's just an aesthetic thing. And then you can change the background color if you want a different background for your prototype, but that again does not do much. So we kind of already did this with that extra learning resources page, but if you ever want to view your prototype, you just select the frame that you want to start from, and then you'll click play. Now we can see the iPhone 14 Pro, we can see our screens, but since we haven't added any connections, we haven't added that interactivity, there's nothing for us to click on or do. But down here, if you hover, you can click and scroll through the different frames and see what's going on. So we're going to go through the process of actually making like the animations and the interactions so that we can click through, and when we would click a login button, it would take us to a login page. All right. So I'm going to show you this locations frame. You don't have to follow along with this, but you'll notice that I have this navigation menu fixed to the bottom of the screen so that no matter how much I'm scrolling, it's always there. So I'm going to show you how to do that first. So if I'm going to zoom in, if I select my navigation menu and in the design tab, we actually go back there. There's this section called constraints. And constraints determine the behavior of different elements as you resize your frames. We're not going to go too much in depth with those, but I put them to be centered horizontally at the bottom of our frame vertically. And then this fixed position when scrolling is actually the setting that makes it stick to the bottom. All right, we had 2 people join in, so I'm going to show you how you can get to this file so you can play around with us too. So if you open your Figma, you'll click this Explore Community tab up here. And then in Search Community, you'll search for DL Figma. And then I posted this file right here, DL Figma Workshop by me, Sean. And you'll click this Get a Copy button. The Figma community, I posted to it, you can copy it, and now you can play around with it with us as well. All right. So now we're going to get actually started with our prototype. So if we go over here, and let's choose this loading signed out DL user frame. It should be the one on the top left. So if you just click on the title to select the frame, and then go to the prototype tab if you're not already there. This is where we can set a flow starting point. Essentially what that is when you're going through an app, you have different flows. So there's going to be a flow for logging in. There could be one for searching in the menu for an item. There could be another one for checking out. We can just click the plus button to start our flow. And in here, you can click and change the title to whatever you want. I'm going to say this as signed out DL user. Again, I like to have descriptive names. This is just the flow for the user named Digital Lounge who has been signed out of the app and needs to go back in. If you want to add a description, you can through here. There's the pencil icon with the box. I'm not going to put anything in here, but if you want to write down some notes so you know what's going on, feel free to. Yeah.
Can you explain again, what is the meaning of flow?
Yeah, a flow is essentially like a little journey that you take through the app. So when you're going through an app, you'll have a process of logging in, for example, and that's like a flow. The app is loading, you see the screen where it says you can log in, you click the button, you type in your username, your password, you click submit, and then you're in the app. That's like a login flow, essentially. So it's just like the whole process of using an app, but broken up into different pieces.
It takes some time to
It takes some time.
it takes some time to log in for submit profile.
Yeah, so that's just like one example, but if you're in the app already, another flow could be, oh, I want to order a thing of coffee from this coffee shop. So another flow could be the process of clicking order, clicking your menu items, adding them to your cart. And then you could have another flow for changing your payment method. It's just different things you can do with the app, different like steps, essentially.
Could you give me a prototype? Like show.
Yeah, so we're gonna be creating the prototype today so that we can see how things go. All right. So you'll also notice in the prototype tab, there's this interaction section. This is where all that magic happens. This is where we can add, the functionality of a button actually taking you to a different screen and stuff like that. So the first thing that we're going to practice is simulating a loading screen. So essentially, as you first boot up an app, it might take, a second or two to load. So we want to get from this loading screen to this account access screen, and we want it to look like it took a little bit of time to load. So if you click on the plus button by interactions, there is two settings that you see right here. This first one, if you click on it, you can also see them kind of in more detail. The first one is the behavior that you're going to take. So this one's on tap. So right now it's trying to simulate something if we click on the frame, but we want it to just kind of automatically load. So if you click here, you'll see all the different types of behaviors that you can simulate. We're going to click after delay to simulate it loading. So it's just going to take some time in the prototype, and then it's going to pretend that it loaded. Over here where it says 800 ms, that's 800 milliseconds. This is going to be the time it takes to load, essentially. We're going to make it a little bit long just so you can see it happen. 800 milliseconds is really quick, so you might not be able to see it. If you type in 5S, that stands for 5 seconds. You can also type in 5,000 ms for 5,000 milliseconds. You can add whatever time you want in here. And then the second part where it says none is what's going to happen. After this delay of 5 seconds, right now, nothing's going to happen because it's set to none. But if you click on it, you get all these other options of what can happen. So we're going to click this navigate to, which basically is the process of moving to a different screen. And when you do that, another field opens up. It says none. And this is where you select the screen that you want it to move to. So we're going to click account access, which is the destination screen. And you'll notice there's even more settings. They just keep popping up. So now we get to define the animation. Right now, it's just going to be instant. So after 5 seconds, we are instantly moved to this other screen. But if you want it to look a little cooler, you want it to look smoother, look just better in general, we can change that. Right here is just going to be a preview of how it looks. So you'll notice it's just going from A to B. It's just pretty instant. But when you click on instant, you'll see the different ways that you can animate. We're going to use Smart Animate. Smart Animate is this really cool feature that you can kind of see previewed in this window. If you'll notice, only the top box changes. That's because in the first screen, that top box is that regular size like this. And then in the second screen, it's bigger. So what Figma is going to do when you click Smart Animate is it's only going to animate the changes between the different frames. So what I expect to happen with this is this background is going to stay the same, but it's going to simulate this logo moving up. If I were to do instant, I will just show you how this looks like right now. You don't have to follow along. It's going to take 5 seconds. And then it just changes automatically. But with that Smart Animate, it's going to simulate, it's going to like show that logo moving up, and it's going to show the buttons showing up. It's a little bit better visually. So let's change it to Smart Animate. Get some animation options over here. These are just the animation behavior. I'm going to choose ease in. Essentially what that means is that the animation is going to go a little bit quicker at the beginning and then kind of slow down as it's going in. Ease out is the exact opposite. So it's going slow and then it goes quick at the very end. And just so we can see that, I'm also going to set this to be a little bit bigger. I'm going to set it to be 3 seconds, so 3S. And then you can click the X to get out of there. You'll notice that we added this interaction, so we see it now in our canvas too. So if you ever want to edit it, you can just click in there and it'll open up those details for you automatically. But you can also click over here in the interactions tab when you have the frame selected. So if I were to select this frame and click play, you're going to notice it's going to have a bit of a cooler animation. It's really slow because we put it to 3 seconds, but it looked a little better than the instant one. So I'm going to set these back to some quicker numbers. I'm going to do 1 second for each, just so that they don't take too long. All right, any questions about that? Smart animation, kind of delay stuff? All right, if you want to jump in with us, if you go to your Figma and you click Explore Community, and then in that search bar, if you search for DL Figma, this one that says DL Figma Workshop is the one that we're using, and you can click get a copy up here. So they get a copy of the whole file and all of our screens and stuff that we're playing around with.
Okay.
All right, so let's keep doing some prototyping. We're going to have, I talked about this a little bit last week about an overlay. So you'll notice that this frame is smaller than the one before it. So how this kind of behavior that we're going to have is we're going to click log in. This is going to show up in front of this whole frame. And then we can click X to get rid of it. We can fill it out, all of that fun stuff. So if we go over here, you can also click on the element that you want to prototype. And then if you hover over the right side of the element, you'll see this plus button right here. You can click and drag that to another frame to create that interaction. And you'll notice all of these interaction details pop up for us already. On tap is the behavior we want. We want to simulate tapping on login, and it's going to open up another screen. Instead of navigate to, we're going to use open overlay. Just let me finish this and then I'll show you how to join. Okay. So open overlay, and then it's the screen that we're going to have overlaid, which is login overlay. And then this is the behavior of how that overlay is going to appear on our screen. So right now it's centered, which means it'll show up in the center of our frame. But if you click here, there's all of these other options. So if you want it to show up in the top left or the bottom left, or if you click manual, you'll notice that this little kind of ghost frame shows up and you can put it wherever you want. We're going to click centered. Here are some common things too. Centered is pretty common. Top left is if you're going to have like kind of like a menu usually. And then if you're going to have like a hidden navigation menu, and then you want it on the bottom, you can do that as well. Close when clicking outside is going to be when the overlay opens. If you want to click outside of it, it'll just close it. But we're not going to use that one because I've prototyped a little close button already. And then there's add background behind overlay. This shows that this screen is still going to be behind our overlay, but with a kind of a black shadow that's at like 25% transparency. We're just going to leave it at that so we can look at how it looks. And then for animation, again, instant, kind of boring. You can use it if you want. I'm going to do something a little bit more fun, and that's move in. Move in is going to show this overlay kind of moving in when we click login. These directional arrows are going to be where it moves from. So it can move in from the right to the left, from the left to the right, top down, or what we're going to do, and that's up. Again, I like ease in, and we're going to keep it at that 1 second or that 1,000 milliseconds. So I'm going to show you what this looks like, and then I will catch our two friends who joined up to speed. So if I click on this account access title, and you click the plus button, it's just going to start us from this. And then when we click login, look at that. Looks a little fun. That click outside to close overlay, that would be like if I clicked up here in the top or in the bottom. All right. So if you want to join along, go to your Figma dashboard and click this Explore Community up here. And then in the search bar, if you search for DL Figma, I've created this file for us, DL Figma Workshop. If you want to play around with it, you just click Get a Copy, and it'll open a copy of that file that I uploaded, and then you can play around with all the screens and stuff.
Is it under files?
So you have to go from your Figma dashboard to Explore Community, which is in the top right of your screen. And then search for DL Figma. And then where it says DL Figma Workshop, and then my name, Sean, you click on that and click Get a Copy. Okay, so now we have the overlay showing up on our screen, but now we want to add in some fun things of like, when you click on that text box that says enter your email, that it actually kind of populates an email. Now, to do this, you do have to use components and variants. So I already created one. In our assets page, you'll see I have this whole component of all of these different text entry fields that are unfilled and filled. So how you can do this is if you create these on your own, but we have them already for this project, you can click on that text box. And then where it says interactions in the prototype tab, you click plus. And then you can click on the tap to none to change the behavior. We're going to do it on tap. And then where it says none, there's this change to option. Change to is only available when you use components and variants. Otherwise, you have to use like navigate to or overlay and stuff. So when we click change to, I set up this component with these different properties and these different values. So I still want the entry data to be email. That's what we're going to enter. Status, I'm going to change this one to filled. And then we're going to use instant. That's fine for this one. And then I can exit out of there. And let's do the same for the enter your password. We'll click on interactions, the plus button. Click on tap to none. Change none to change to. And then change that status property to filled. And we can still keep it at instant.
Once we get your stuff,
Mhm.
what's next? We should go to prototype, right, on each site,
Mhm.
and then we can find interactions.
So that's what we're doing, is we're creating the actions today. So before you got here, we created a delay. We created an open overlay. I can show you how to do it after class to catch you up.
But how can I catch up?
Just follow along from here. Yeah. And then I'll do the first steps with you later. I'm going to click on this close button too. I want to simulate that it closes. So if you click on it, you can click this plus button by the interactions. Tap is what we're going to do when you click it. That's tapping it. And then where it says none, we're going to do close overlay instead. And then the last thing we need to prototype for this is that submit button. So we put in our email, our password, should click submit, and it should log you into the app. So we're going to click on the submit button, hover over this plus icon, click and drag to move it to the homepage DL user frame, which is right to the right of it. On tap, that's cool. Navigate to, great. Homepage DL user, great. And then I'm going to change the animation behavior from move in to dissolve, just so that we can play around with some more different animations and you can see what they're doing. Again, I like ease in, so we're going to keep it like that. And then just so we can see it happen, I'm going to change the time from 1,000 milliseconds. I'm going to put 3S, which is 3 seconds, and enter there. And click the X. Now let's see what we've done so far. So if I go over here to loading signed out DL user, highlight the frame, I'm going to click plus. I'm viewing this. So there's a bit of a delay. It smart animates into our login page. I'm going to click login. It's going to open my overlay. I can click the X to close it. And click it back to open it. And when I click in the text box, it fills in some data for me. Click in the password, fills it in. I click submit. Beautiful. We're into the app. All right. Any questions about that? Yeah.
What do you need with the long patterns?
So the thing is you can't have a user type it in. So I created an empty one and a filled in one. So no matter what, when someone's using this prototype and they click in there, it's gonna automatically fill in what I put. If you want to simulate like putting in the wrong password in an error message, you have to create all of those screens and the components and stuff, but on your own. If you want to do some practice too after this, you can do the same thing with register, opening the register overlay, changing these to be filled in, submitting it, closing it, all of that stuff. But it's basically the same stuff that we just did. So if you notice that there's been a lot of steps that we did to simulate a few of these processes. But I have this navigation menu with 6 different buttons. And if I have to click in to the home and click and drag to take it to the home page on each to the actual home page. And then we will have it go all the time. Got a little distracted by the Zoom. I don't know what it's doing. So if we click on the component name, and then either control click or right click if you have like a mouse, and you'll see all these options show up. One of them is move to page. So let's move it to our prototype page. So it disappears from here. If we go to our prototype page, they place it in a very inconvenient place, but you can just click and drag it to move it somewhere else. So I'm just going to move it all the way to the left. So this is this top left one is that original master component that we're going to use. This is the one that has been placed on every one of these screens so far. So how I have this built is if we go here, if you click on it, it should navigate you to it in the layers panel where it says idle, default, and 0. And if you expand it, there's all of the different frames for the different navigation menu items. If you expand the home nav one, you'll notice there's a vector and a rectangle. I'm gonna move the rectangle above the vector. It is a transparent rectangle, and this is kind of like a trick that you can use if you want easier interactions. If I were to prototype from that icon, if I click on it, you can see where it's highlighted. I would have to specifically click within there, but I added a transparent rectangle that's much bigger. So now you can click anywhere in this size. So you get a little bit more.
Sorry, how do I put rectangle above?
You click in the layers panel and you drag it above.
Oh, sorry.
So then from here, You'll notice I have the rectangle selected. It already has an interaction on here for me, but if it doesn't for you, click plus. We want on tap, so that's cool. We're gonna change the navigate to none to navigate to homepage DL user. Click the X. You can notice that there's this long blue line that's simulating that. It's not going to show you on every single one. But if I were to click over here into this instance, you'll notice that that home rectangle still has that. I can click over here. This one has it too. I can click. It just makes things a lot easier than having to do this on every single one. So let's go back here to our master component. And let's do this for the rest of these so that we have a functional navigation menu. So open the about frame. Let's move that rectangle above the vector again. Then with only the rectangle selected, we'll click on the plus by interactions in the prototype. Click tap to none. Change none to navigate to. And then where it says none, change it to about. All right, I'm gonna go to the location one now. So open the location nav frame. I remembered to put the rectangle above the vector this time. So you can click on rectangle 40. Click on the plus by interactions. Click tap to none. Change none to navigate to. Change none to locations. And then I'm going to let you free to practice on the other three, the menu, cart, and help. Let me know if you get stuck.
For the animation, we don't change, right? So it's
I'm not changing it. If you want to play around with it and see what it does, you can do that.
Okay, so basically assets makes everything kind of easier because it's like master tool basically.
So the assets page is just like the way I organized it. I wanted to keep all my components on there. But when you create like a master component like this one, this is the real magic of making all this prototyping easier. It just has to be on the same page as the prototype. Yeah.
for the help navigation. Should we navigate to DL user or
It navigates a contact. I didn't keep it the same name. Sorry about that. So under help nav, we're navigating to contact. So now I'm gonna show you how this all looks, what we've done so far. So you can click on either the flow or the title. When I click plus, it's simulating that loading delay. I can log in. Awesome. And then if I click anywhere in the screen, you'll notice those like blue boxes that are flashing when I do that. This just is signaling that that is clickable. It will do something when you click on it. So if I were to click on locations, it takes me to the locations page. I can go over to the contact page. I can go back to locations. I can click on the menu. Pretty cool. Okay. Let's see what else. We did a little bit of this last week, but I'll just refresh what we did. If you go to this menu frame, and you'll notice I put all of our menu items in here. I created all of them as an auto layout. And then some of it's outside of our screen though. So if I go back to the design tab and I click clip content, and then I can resize this box, this frame. I'm going to resize it to be right up at that right edge of the espresso image. And then I can go to the prototype tab, and where it says overflow scrolling, I can change it to horizontal scrolling. This will simulate that I can scroll through and see the rest of the menu items that aren't there right now. So just to show you how that looks like, I'm going to click on menu and click the plus button or the play button. And I can click and drag and see what else is there.
I'm so sorry. Can you
Mhm.
Because I was trying to look for the menu on the left.
Yeah, so if you click on, I'm going to do the one for cold drinks. And then go to the design tab. Click clip content. And then click and drag the box to resize it to only show the 3 menu items. And then you'll go over to prototype. And then where it says no scrolling, change it to horizontal scrolling. And then if you click on the frame name, and then you click the play icon, you can play around, click and drag to see the horizontal scrolling, making it actually kind of work like a functional app somewhat. All right. Now we want to have, we're going to go through that same overlay process that we did before, but this is going to be if we click on cold brew, it'll open up our cold brew menu item page. Now we're going to simulate when you click these different buttons that it changes to a state where it looks like it's selected, where you can click on this add-ins, and then you'll see, you know, more options, stuff like that. So if you go to that menu frame still, and if you double click within to click on the cold brew thing, you'll see this like purple box that should be just around the cold brew one. If you open the frame, it's also the very first menu item. And then if you hover over that plus icon, You can click and drag it over to the menu item screen. On tap, what we want to do, instead of navigate to, we're going to do open overlay like we did with the login screen. We're still going to keep it centered. We'll add the background behind the overlay to simulate that shadow. And let's do move in so it's a little bit cooler. This time we'll do it from the right, coming in from the left to the right, just so we can play around with it. And let's play around with a different animation setting too. I haven't actually used all of these, so we can see what some of them look like. I'm gonna click bouncy just to be fun, see what happens. Oh, that's gonna be funny. Let's see how it looks at 3 seconds. We'll want to go back to that X icon on our drink item overlay. Click on the plus by the interactions. You could also click on the one that's on the side. And then we're going to change on the none to close overlay. So I'll just close what we opened.
Did you add flow to this?
No, I did not. You don't always need flows to actually do the prototyping. Generally just one is fine, but if you want to simulate different ones, I'll show you, like, if you wanted to do, add flow at the locations and be like, choose USC coffee shop. Then when you actually go to start from the beginning, over here, you'll notice that I can click on a different flow and it'll start me from that starting screen. So if you wanted to, like, break up your prototype into different sections and just have people use specific ones and test it out, that's kind of a good use of the flows. All right, let's go back here. If we click on large, and then where it says interactions, we can click the plus icon.
I have a quick question. So
Mhm.
any plus icon around the purple box will work, right? It doesn't have to be the one on the right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to change the none to change to. As a reminder, change to is only available when you do a component and a variant. For this one, I have for size large, I also have status selected. And we can keep it at instant. And then let's do the same for oat milk. So you might have to double click in there a few times to select just the oat section. You can click the plus. Oh, the plus one by the box looks like you have to click and drag it somewhere. But if you click on here, you can add just for this. So I'm going to change none to change to, and again, change the status to selected. I'll click on the add-ins. I'll click on the plus button again. We're going to do a lot of tapping in here. Where it says none, we'll do change to, and then opened. It's not going to be the most pretty when we do this, I will warn you. And then for add to cart, we can also, maybe we want to send them back to our menu, so we can click and drag over there. And we'll just keep those the same. So if I click on the menu frame title and click on the plus, or the play button, I keep saying plus. I can click on cold brew. Well, that was kind of fun, the little bouncy stuff. And then I can click on the large, and then I see that it changed to my UI that I have for selected. I can do the same for oat. You'll notice that for add-ins, we simulated this. It doesn't automatically scroll something down for you, so that's why it doesn't look pretty. We didn't add in anything to close it, actually. It's blocking add to cart now, so we can just exit out. So there's, things that we didn't take into consideration here, just to show you kind of how things work. Now, the nice thing about these components is that you can also do some of that prototyping in that assets page that we have. So if you go over to assets, certain types of interactions, you don't need to move the component to that other page. So if we wanted to have our add-ins work, what we could do is click on that add-ins, find the add-ins drop-down component, and you click on the add-ins box at the top. You can, from here, you can click and drag if you want, or you can click the plus. And then it's on click, change to opened, which is what we want. And then these checkboxes are actually also a different component. So if you go and find them, where did I put them? They're over here, like in the middle. They're kind of small, to the left of the menu items. You can click the empty one, click and drag down here. And you see it automatically thinks, okay, we're going to click it. We're going to change it to this other variant that we created of it.
Wait, where is this?
To the left of the menu items. And then we can go back here to our add-ins drop down. And if we double click a couple times into just selecting this triangle, you can click and drag down to this other one. And so that's like another way that you can prototype something like this as well. So when I go back to the prototype page and I click on this one, you'll see that I have variant interactions here. I have 2 because we did this twice. I'm going to remove that one. Let me just see if that was the right one. Yeah. So now when we open this overlay, we should be able to click it, click these different buttons to select ones, and then click it to collapse it. You'll notice that I have it set to when you collapse it, that there's specific ones put in there. This is kind of a strategy with like UX research. So if you're going to use user testing for like an app or a website, you're generally guiding them through a process. If you wanted to have it fully, open where you can like click and add different things and you can like see the cart number change and stuff like that, you'll have to create like hundreds of screens because there's no like code behind this at all. So it's not going to remember that someone clicked certain buttons and got to certain points. So in this case, if I was like trying for people to test out my app and stuff, there would be directions that say, on your menu, click the cold brew to open up, and then order a large with oat milk and then add the chocolate syrup and the whipped cream, which again, it doesn't automatically change this. But that would be kind of, the step-by-step instructions that they should follow. And then they're like, oh, it works as expected.
After you press add to cart, it goes back to the menu, right?
Yeah, it should.
Yeah, this is like getting kind of out of what we're doing, but when you share it to someone, is there a way to add instructions with your share?
What you could do is you could add like another page and then just like type out instructions.
Yeah.
You could also just type out things outside of the frames, like up here, and be like, oh, do this, do that. It won't show up when they're prototyping though. So kind of up to you and
Yeah.
how you want to do that. Usually with like actual structured user testing, they'll either have someone sitting there with them, reading them the instructions, do this, do that, or they'll have like a sheet of paper with them to have them all. Yeah.
Why you take 5 seconds to load the
That's just like what I chose. So, with the like load in page, I'll do this again if those who joined a little late want to try it out. So I'm going to click on this loading signed out DL user. And then if you click and drag to over here, this page with all the buttons, we have change on tap to after delay. And then this is where you set the time. I just put it to 5 seconds so you can like see it actually happening, because 800 milliseconds is kind of quick. So you might not be able to see it. Ideally, if you're making an app, it loads very fast. So it wouldn't take 5 seconds. But if you wanted to be like, oh, I want to see like, what it looks like if it's taking 30 seconds to load, I guess it only allows 20. But I picked 5 just so that it was slow when you're viewing it, so you could actually see what you were doing.
Why my after delay is not able?
Yeah. So any questions on like what we've been doing so far? I know that we've went through, honestly, quite a bit of the prototyping stuff pretty quick.
So this whole thing will be.
Yeah.
This. I had some.
Mhm. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Okay.
You said the reason why you need to give instructions is because so that you don't, make every like icons work, right?
Yeah. So that's if you're going to have like another user test your app. and test your prototype.
Well, in this case, you only make the cold brew work. That's why you want them to tap cold brew instead of other, every, okay.
I mean, if you wanted to build all these different screens, like if you wanted to build an Americano screen, a drip coffee, an espresso one, you can do that. I only built one just so we can see how it works prototyping wise. If you wanted to make everything clickable and play around, that's totally cool. But especially with you, when you click like add to cart, you would then have to have another menu item or like another menu screen that would have like a 1 right here, for example, to show that you had something added. But then if they go to their cart and they click delete, then you have to have it where, okay, they're still in their cart, but when they click, then that disappears. And then when you click on anywhere else, it takes you back to the state where there was nothing, no numbers. So if you want to have like a really cool app that's super functional, the prototype is all cool, you can make hundreds and hundreds of screens, play around with the prototyping. But usually you just need to have some basics and then kind of guide a user through it.
This is for
Specifically.
the engineers to understand and they will build the exact thing, right? This is just to show them so that they know, like.
So this is for like testing. So like with UX design, a big part of that is making sure it's functional for a user and that it's meeting their needs. So if I was just, let's say I'm not the designer here. I'm just like a random USC student who doesn't like the coffee shops here at USC. They're like, oh, there's this new one. And they're testing out this new app. So they might bring me in as someone who has no knowledge of the app, don't know anything about it, to like actually test out like, oh yeah, clicking on cold brew takes me to the cold brew screen. It's easy for me to add things to my cart, right? So a prototype is not going to be the actual thing that is pushed out, but it's something that is used to simulate how the app will actually work, to get tests from users who actually might use it when it's designed. And then yes, when the developers are trying to actually build the code that makes all of this, they will use this as like a guide for them. Cool. All right. So those are like quite a bit of those prototyping interactions that we would use for a mobile. But there's a couple other things that I want to show you that could be a little bit more for like web. So actually, if you go to the prototype page and you go over to where we put that nav menu component, you'll notice that I made so many variants of this one. In like web design, generally you want, like if you notice when I'm hovering over these tabs, their color changes a little bit. The UI changes to let me know like, oh, I'm hovering over it, I can click it. When I click on it, it should take me somewhere. Other ones, when you click on it, it changes the color even more, stuff like that. So if you want to do something like that, let's find that idle default 0 again. We can click on that rectangle 38, which is that home screen. And if we click on plus by interactions, there's a couple of different ones that we can do. There's on drag, but we're going to actually use while hovering. That's going to simulate the change that happens when you hover over a certain element. It's a little bit different than actually clicking on it.
You said idle default 8.
0. So while hovering, and I can use my change to, and then we'll see all these different component properties that we created. I can change the status from idle to hover, which I named. And we're gonna keep it at smart animate because that only changes what's different between them. If I were to do like instant or dissolve, it might act a little funny. Let me see if it does. I'm gonna do instant. You don't have to follow along. You'll notice that it gave me a little warning though. So what happens with some interactions is this one's saying this is not going to happen because there's some conflicting behaviors. So I'm going to get rid of the tap just so we can play around. So if I go back, let's do this one. So I have that while hovering changed to the other one that has hover. Oh, instant's not being funny. Usually it is. But you'll notice that when I hover over it, it changes that color. And that's because I created a variant of it that has that green color that I want when it's hovered. Okay. So that's pretty much all of the actual prototype stuff that I wanted to go through. I'm gonna let you all loose. Play around with it. You know, try to maybe build the register overlay. Maybe when they click this BLT order it now, it takes them to the menu. When they click, you know, order from here for the USC, it should take you to the menu kind of thing. So let's play around with it for a little bit. I'm here. Let me know if you have questions, if you want to troubleshoot anything. Sound good? Cool.
I'm pretty caught up with the rest. I think
Cool.
I just missed a little bit of the front.
Mhm.
Maybe I think the locking overlay. Maybe
Okay.
I can do, it.
Yeah, I can redo that one. Let me get rid of some of this.
So the whole purpose for this is just for users to test it, right?
Yeah, and then so when designers like or developers can actually look at it too after you've designed it, they can be like, oh, like this is this color green that I need to do. I need to make sure that, you know, we designed it as an overlay. So they're going to create code that makes it an overlay instead of just to a different screen, if that makes sense.
But I mean, which page, like what the page leads to, isn't that just logic? Like,
Yeah, but like you could change it to be like different from other apps, you know? So you should still have the prototype, but like developers might not know that you want this sign to be the location sign, you know? So it's, you know, we built this, so it's kind of like, oh, it's the logic that we built it with, but that doesn't mean that everyone knows what we're thinking when we're designing it. So it's just making everything like super clear for everyone, that we're all on the same page. Okay, so for the overlay, for the login, I'm gonna click on the login button where it says account access screen. Then just click on the login button. And then you can click and drag with that plus over here to the login overlay. On tap, we'll do, instead of navigate to, we'll do open overlay. And then there's a bunch of different options for what you want to do. This is the screen. That's going to be the overlay. These are the position. So if you want it to be fully centered, but you can click all these different options if you want it to be somewhere else when it opens. If you click manual, it'll give you kind of like a ghost frame that you can kind of custom place wherever you want it to open.
and the background will still stay there, right?
Yeah, so that is this setting right here. add background behind overlay. So if I were to get rid of this, add background, and I were to showcase this. Oh, I think. Oh, I see what it is. So this is going to, the overlay will no matter what open above this. When you click add background, that's where you can change kind of like how like it appears. So this is going to be like a shadow. But if I wanted to change it to be like, you know, fully red. It gives me a fully red background. If I wanted to change that so that it's maybe like a little more transparent, it's going to create almost like a red film over that previous screen that we just came from.
And why do you want to make the login page smaller than the account access page in the first place?
It's up to you. So this is like just the design that I wanted to do. If you wanted to have the login overlay be a full size screen, and then you click on it, I preferred it to be smaller just because if it's going to be the same size, then there's going to be like so much blank space. You see? So I just made it smaller so that it's not like we're, I don't want to say wasting space, but kind of your design preference. And then I clicked on this plus or this X icon, sorry. And then if you click on the plus by interactions, you can change where it says none. You can change that to close overlay. So that'll just, you know, we opened it when we click login, you can click the X to close it. All right, cool.
How do you make the sign like move?
Yeah. So that is in this this interaction where we click login, that's under animation. So where it says instant, we can change that to move in. And then there'll be the different arrows for where, like how you want it to move into the screen. And then where it says ease out, these are different just like animation options. So ease in is essentially the animation starts faster and then it gets slower and kind of like pulls to a park, like a car. Ease out would be that when it's first moving, it's slower and then it speeds up until the end. Ease in and out is slow, gets faster, then gets slower again. You can just play around with these.
Did you add an animation to the first page, like the page without the login register?
Yeah, that was the after that delay thing that wasn't working. And then I did smart animate. Smart animate changes only what is different between the screens. So if I were to do ease in, and then I'm going to do 4 seconds just so you can see it. So it's noticing that my logo is placed higher on my next screen. Why is it not going? Oh, because it's a delay of 20 seconds. If I were to do that at 4 seconds. So just, you know, it's loading and then now it's going to move up like that just because Figma recognized that in the previous screen, it was centered. And then on the screen we're moving to, it's up. So when we do smart animate, it's going to be like, oh, I know that I should move it from that center and then move it up. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you do the ghost and
Yeah. So that's when you are going to open an overlay like we did for login. And then where it says centered, you can change it to manual. And then this allows you to place the overlay wherever you want it to be. Like if you wanted it to be like, you can still see the name. You can put it like there. It doesn't show again, but if I were to click on account access and click login, it's going to move to where I placed that kind of like ghost frame. So for the interaction of on tap open overlay, I changed where it said centered, I changed it to manual. And then you get that and you can place it wherever you want.
Are we like technically prepared to be a UI designer from these 3 workshops?
No. I would maybe say like 25.
25?
Yeah. Like percent of the way to having technical knowledge of being a UX designer. It's better than nothing. Yeah, think of this, I think, as like a start to stuff. On the extra learning resources page, if you click play on the frame, I have all of these links for if you want to learn more about UX design or Figma itself or just some general design stuff. All of these headers are clickable, and then all of these green text are clickable as well. If you want to get like a professional thing from Google, they have their own UX design certificate. It's through Coursera. You get a 7-day free trial, and then after that, it is $39 a month. And they say it takes about 6 months to do. It's by no means like a requirement to get into the field. The biggest thing that I can recommend is just keep designing things and build a portfolio. Because when you're going into any kind of design or artistic career, they don't really care about the certifications or the fact that, you attended so many of Figma workshops with me. They want to see what you can do already. So throughout these past 3 weeks, we've built the wireframes, we've built like some mock-ups, some prototypes. So kind of take this and just make a bunch of things. Make a bunch of things, put it in a portfolio, and then send it out. So in that file that I shared with you, if you see like the page, you click, there should be one called extra learning resources.
Oh, is this from the email?
No.
I think
So when we went through the process of going to the community and searching for this, in that file that you copied, it's a page in that file. And then if you search DL Figma workshop, and then click get a copy, it'll open up a copy of the file that I created. And in there's a page called extra learning resources that you can open through here if you don't see the pages. And then if you click on the title and you click play, then you can actually click on the links and it'll take you.
Also, how did you decide on the typography and the color?
Yeah, that was for this one, I was watching like some guy go through like him building a website on Figma, and he chose these fonts, and I was like, oh, those look cool. So I'm just gonna take the fonts, and you can like always play around. Figma uses Google Fonts as a base. So if you look that up, you can see all of the different ones that are available and some sample text as well. And then if you wanted to type something specific, like see how certain words look in those, and you can just scroll through and kind of be like, oh, I like this and like that. It's kind of playing around with it until you are like, that looks good.
And for color?
Color theme, I chose because I liked the. So I designed this logo first because I was like, coffee's brown, so I'm gonna have some brown in it. And then I was using Unsplash for all these pictures, and so many of them had plants in them. And I was like, oh, if I'm going to use a bunch of pictures of a coffee shop that has a bunch of plants, like the green might look well with it. I think I probably just used one of the pictures. Let me see. I'll bring in a picture. And then in the design tab, or you can also do, let me remember what the keyboard shortcut is. Okay, so Control C, you get like a color picker. And it's a little finicky right now. But then you'll be able to see, why is that so bad? But then you can see like a hex code there and be like, oh, I like that one. You can like write it down or something. And then when you're going to an actual element, you can change the fill to be that color right here. With colors, if you want to know another fun place, Adobe has Adobe Color. Let me find it. And this like gives you some different color themes and palettes. So I could pick like complementary, and then I could be like, oh, I know that I want my first one to be like 355 D13. I don't know if that's a color. Oh, it is. And then it'll give you some complementary colors to go along with it. But then you can also kind of change things around and make a fun color palette. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have any recommend for creating a white person website? Because a lot of them they require a person website. I don't have any experience about that. So
Yeah, so on March 29th, I think it's March 29th, my boss, Josh Logan, is going to lead a workshop called Designing Your Personal Website in WordPress, if you want to sign up for that.
March.
Yeah, let me go grab the flyers real quick. Yeah, so here's some flyers if you want to come around and see what other workshops are going to be available. We have one in WordPress, and then there's also another series if you want to hear. There's another series for Google Analytics, for like website analytics, if you want to get a free like certificate in it.
Is that a way to get like certificate for Google Analytics?
Yes.
Wait, but like. will you just import it?
Nope. No, so you don't have to go to this workshop to get it for free. If you go to
Oh, actually, I don't have one.
okay.
I have the older version.
So there's Google Analytics Academy. Just so you know, these teach the old version right now. They said that they're going to update it pretty soon. But you could just go through this once it is updated and do it completely for free. The benefit of the workshop is that Josh has taught the workshop the whole time. So if you want to ask questions, but you don't have to go to it to get the certificate.
Also about the margins and parameters.
Yeah.
So now what if it change for different screen types? Now right now I think that iPhone 14.
Yeah, so right now it's the iPhone 14 Pro frame. Now, some people what they'll do with the pages instead of how we did it, where it's like wireframe mock-up prototype, is they'll have a different page for all the different screens. So the thing is you're gonna have to recreate quite a bit of it in Figma if you wanted to prototype it. But what you could try to do is if you click on like the submit button on here, there's these constraints. And constraints determine how the element resizes when the frame does. So right now it's set to left and top. So it's going to remain in the same kind of left top position relatively when the frame is resized. So if I were to go up here and go like this, it's not going to change. But if I were to say, I actually want it to be centered and at the bottom, it kind of moves around with it. So it's centered to where it was before. It's a little tricky like that. You could also do like scaling. Yeah, have a good one. So that the actual size of the button changes. And then we can just change the frame to be a different one. But you will have to kind of tweak it a little bit. So as you play through this, and you like make a prototype, whether it's using this or, using stuff that you designed yourself, if you ever want to like embed it in your website, you can click on the share button. And then where it says get embed code, this is an actual like HTML code that you could put into your website so that when it's published, someone who visits it could like click through. So nice addition for your portfolio website if you build one, to be like, click through my prototype that I created, and kind of fun.
Do you recommend like everyone who's looking for a design job to have their own website?
You don't like, yes. If you have like a bunch of design stuff and you don't want to put it on a website, but you could put it in like a Google Drive folder and share it with employers, but most people will have a website.
What is the Google Drive option? Does that sound, not professional? Or is that
It's-
acceptable?
It's acceptable in a pinch. It's a lot more professional to have a website though. So I would recommend getting a website, whether that's, if you know how to code it, that would be great because you can like custom design it. Then you can be like, I know how to, web code. I can make this on my own. But if you want to use something like WordPress or Wix or something like that, that's totally cool too. You're welcome.
Workshop,
Mhm.
which one are we? Implementing?
Google Analytics 4. So the ones on that Google publishes right now are for what's called Universal Analytics. They're retiring that in July. So, but Google Analytics 4 is what everyone's moving to. And so that's what the certificate, like exam stuff is going to be on.
I'm gonna probably head out, but
All right.
if I got any questions while I'm messing around with Figma, can I just come to the digital center and ask?
Yeah, so I'm at that help desk Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. I generally take a lunch between like 1:30, 2:30 kind of thing. But feel free to stop by and let me know. You all have my email too, because I was sending it out, so you can always email me as well.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, have a good one.
That was-
No. This is the only one that I was teaching.
Oh, last.
Mhm.
So, my professor made us take a Google Universal and analytics essential training.
Okay.
That-
That's gonna be the old one.
Oh, yeah, never mind, I see, 2020, so.
Yeah.
so-
Mhm.